What does a Canadian English accent sound like, and how similar is it to an American English accent? That's what I've been wondering for these past couple days. It's just been in my head. And so we're gonna look at this video um, explaining all about the Canadian English accent and um, Canadian English and what it sounds like and what's different from the American English accent. So let's just go ahead and see what the differences are.
Do you see the river behind me? Sorry, it might be a little bit out of focus. The other day, a man was out in his boat doing some fishing, but it was really hot, so he didn't stay out there for very long, and I think he only caught one or two fish. If you were paying close attention to those first few sentences I just said, you'll realize that I pronounced three words with a strong Canadian accent, and I even threw in one word that is uniquely Canadian.
Is it A?
If you've ever been curious about what Canadian English sounds like and what makes it a little bit different than the other kinds of English spoken around the world, stick around. I'll explain all of that in this English lesson. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson where I'm going to talk about Canadian English. Before we get started though, if this is your first time here, don't forget to click that red subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if this video helps you learn just a little bit more English. So one of the most common questions that I get as an English teacher on YouTube is this: what is the difference between American and Canadian English? Well, the first thing I want to mention is this. In terms of how the language sounds, they are very, very similar. In fact, this is what I read on Wikipedia. Wikipedia says this: in terms of how the languages sound, Canadian and American English are classified together as North American English, emphasizing the fact that the vast majority of outsiders, even other native English speakers, cannot distinguish the typical accents of the two countries by sound alone. So what that
Yeah, it's pretty difficult for me. As I once said in another video about accents that I did or reacted to, I watched this show called Heartland, which is a Canadian show, one of my favorite shows, but that's besides the point. When I was watching it, I was just constantly trying to hear if I could distinguish the Canadian accent, or I guess one of them, because I suppose there's different Canadian accents throughout the whole country. But yeah, it was pretty difficult for me, and there were only a few words that I could really hear it, and one was about, because I think where in American English you'll say about, in Canadian English you say a boat, or something like that. I'm not very good at doing accents, but I noticed that that OU sound is different in Canadian English. But yeah, generally it's pretty difficult for me as a non-native English speaker to tell the difference. But that's why we're watching this video.
means is that Canadian English and American English sound very similar. I like to say we're very close cousins of each other. There are a few words that we pronounce differently, and I will talk about them in a little bit. But I think the major reason why this is true is because we live so close to each other and we share each other's culture. Canadians watch a lot of American TV and we watch a lot of American television. I would like to think that Americans do the same thing. But in terms of how the languages sound, they sound very, very similar. One of the ways that Canadian English does sound different than American English is in the way we say our O sounds in some of our words. At the beginning of the video, I said a man was out in his boat. And if you were an American English speaker, those words would have sounded different to you. I can't pronounce them with an American accent. All I know is how I say them. But if you ever meet a Canadian and you want to bug them a little bit about their language or joke around a bit, ask them to say, the man was out and about in his boat. And you will then hear how the O sound.
That's kind of Interesting though, because for me, I mostly hear it when he says about. Um, and then without, I can kind of hear it a bit, but when he says boat, it gets a little trickier for me. Because how would you say it in American English? Like, is it more like boat? So is the difference like boat or boat? I don't know.
Sounds in those words when a Canadian English speaker says them. Another word that sounds a little bit unique when a Canadian English speaker says it is the word sorry. When we pronounce sorry, it actually rhymes a little bit with the word sore. The other day I was walking and I twisted my ankle, and now my ankle is sore. So the word sore and the word sorry have the same O sound when we pronounce them in Canadian English.
Is it more like sorry? Sorry?
So, as a Canadian, I do apologize a lot. Canadians are known for apologizing. And I think the way we say the word sorry is the most accurate pronunciation. I wish every other English speaker in the world pronounced it that way and said it more often.
Wait, that sounded quite Canadian to me right there when you said that way.
Apologizing. And I think the way we say the word sorry is the most accurate pronunciation. I wish every other English speaker in the world pronounced it that way and said
Yeah, when he said that way, that sounded pretty different.
more often. Canadian English speakers also tend to use the word a. And there's two ways that I use the word a when I'm speaking English. I used one example at the beginning of the video. I said the man was out in his boat fishing, but it was really hot, so he didn't stay out for very long. I added the word a to that sentence as kind of a prompt to make sure that you were still listening. A is a word that we sometimes add in the middle of a sentence, and we're basically saying, hey, please keep paying attention to me while I talk to you. So you'll hear teachers say this a lot. They'll often say, you need to get to work, There's a lot of work to do today, so it's very important that you get to work. The second way I use the word a is when I make a statement and I put a at the end with a question mark because I want the person I'm talking to agree with me. If I was eating pizza with you and I like the pizza, I might say, this pizza is really good, So
I feel like that might be kind of similar to how we use hè in Dutch, which ironically is a but reverse, so it's he. Because if you translate this to Dutch, we would say deze pizza is, is really lekker. Deze pizza is echt lekker, hè? So it's hè, as in, I think, yeah, the same way you would use Aiden, as a way to get the other person to confirm what you're saying, and you're asking for their opinion. So you're not just saying, oh, this pizza was really good. You're saying, yeah, it's really good, so we would say, deze pizza is echt lekker, hè? So, yeah, that's quite funny. I feel like that's the same thing. And that the letters are just reversed. Yeah, it's quite funny if you think about it.
I stated that the pizza was good, but I turned it into a question by adding a, and a question where I'm expecting you to agree with me. So these videos are pretty good, Or this pizza is pretty good, Or the view of the river is really nice today, So basically I'm adding a because I want you to agree with me. It's kind of a weird way that Canadians get people to agree with them.
But yeah, because we also do that in Dutch, now I'm wondering, because I never really thought about it, but now I'm wondering, do other languages just not do that? Do they have different versions of it as well? Like, I never really thought about it, but now I wonder.
So, American English and Canadian English sound very similar, except for a few words that Canadians pronounce in their own unique way. But you might be wondering, do you spell all your words the same? When you are writing something, do you spell your words the same as your American cousins? Well, for the most part, yes. But there are a few words like honor and color where in American English they spell it with an OR on the end.
So the Canadian spelling is like the British spelling then with those words.
And in Canadian English, we add OUR.
And also like the Australian spelling then, right?
And there's also...
So I think, sorry for that I keep pausing it, but I think that the American spelling is the odd one out here then. Because the Canadians, Australians, and the Brits do it the same way.
Also words like center and meter, where our American cousins spell it with an ER at the end, and we actually spell it with an RE. So not a huge difference. I think 99.9% of the words are spelled exactly the same way, but there are some small differences that you would need to learn if you were trying to perfect your Canadian English. Now you might be wondering, do you use all the same words as the Americans do when they speak English? Well, we do for the most part, but there are a few words that are uniquely Canadian. We say toque when we talk about a winter hat. Our
Toque? Toque? I'd never heard of that.
$1 coin is called a loonie.
Loonie?
We usually go to the washroom instead of the bathroom. When we order a coffee and we want 2 creams and 2 sugars in it, we order a double-double. So double cream, double.
Oh, that's quite fun to say, actually. A double-double. I'd like a double-double.
Sugar. When we get a case of beer that has 24 bottles in it, we call it a 2-4. The pole behind me, we call a hydro pole. I think they would call it a utility pole in the United States. In Canada, we call electricity hydro. So if the hydro goes out, it's the same as having a power outage. And then we do pronounce one letter in the alphabet a little bit differently. At the end of the alphabet, we have the letter Z. We do not say Z in Canadian English.
So that's the same as in Dutch then, yeah. Because I always found it so, I don't want to say weird, but it's so different to me and kind of uneasy to say, or to say Z. Because I'm like, what's Z? Why Z suddenly? Because I'm used to Z. I don't know if that's the exact same as the Canadian pronunciation. Because to me it would be more like Z-E-T instead of Z-E-D. But yeah, I didn't know that. It's the same in Canada.
English. So if
Wait.
you... And then
Let's go back and see if it's more like Z or like Z.
we do pronounce one letter in the alphabet a little bit differently. At the end of the alphabet, we have the letter Z. We do not say Z.
Yeah, so it's a little different. It's Z instead of Z. We say Z.
In Canadian English. So if you were a little bit worried about whether you should be watching a Canadian teaching English when you are wanting to learn an American accent, I would say, don't worry. I, from personal experience, can tell you this. I went to university in the United States. I had no problems functioning as a university student. I did very well. I had no trouble understanding Americans, and they had no trouble understanding me. Although they did laugh when I said something like, Dawn got up at the crack of dawn. Because apparently the name Dawn and the time of day, dawn, are pronounced differently in American English. And I still don't know how to pronounce them that way.
Huh. Let's go back.
Up at the crack of dawn.
Dawn got up at the crack of dawn?
Because apparently the name Dawn and the time of day, dawn, are...
Dawn. How do they say it in American English? Like dawn? Dawn? No, I don't know either. Huh? Dawn. Dawn. No. What? I'm so confused. I'm gonna need to ask my boyfriend after this video because he is American. But yeah. Huh. I do not know.
pronounced differently in American English, and I still don't know how to pronounce them that way. Anyways, Bob the Canadian here. Thank you for watching this little English lesson about Canadian English. If this is your first time here, don't forget to click that red subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if this video helped you learn just a bit more English. And if you have the time, why don't you stick around and watch another English lesson?
Yeah, maybe I will be watching more of these videos. And also like comparing the Canadian accent with the Australian accent and like the New Zealand accent. Just really interested in all English accents and knowing the differences between them. It's so fascinating to me for some reason. But yeah, now I know a little bit more about, or rather, about what makes Canadian English, and it's not that different from American English. So yeah, like you said, a few words. Also interested in like the different, maybe like slang words or something. I feel like maybe there's more words that could be different. If there are, let me know in the comments. I enjoyed seeing these differences and just learning more about Canadian English. I hope that you enjoyed this video too. And yeah, like I said, let me know in the comments if there's any more things that you can tell me about Canadian English.